Hello and welcome to This Album with me, William Han. It's the podcast where each episode a guest and I deep dive an album of their choice. We're going to discuss the songs, the shows, the artwork, but we're also going to talk the emotional attachment my guest, this guy here, has to it. So sure, we'll discuss how it charted, where it was recorded, but what I want to know is when my guest first heard it, what was happening in their life at the time, and what memories they attached to it. Who knows, we might even have a bloody laugh while doing it too. Today, I am joined by a man that is the archetypal textbook version of a cool dude. I'm joined by a surfer, a skater, a guitarist, a live sound wizard, a solo pop punk king. No, it's not Bodie from Point Break. He's a friend of mine. He's a colleague of mine. It's Julian Gonzalez King. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Really good, man. It's been a wild year in a really good way.
Yes. So let's get into that, man. Let's talk about who you are and what you do.
Right. So one of many things that I do is I'm a musician. I love songwriting, and I have recently started this project called Julian GK, where it's, like you said, a bit of pop punk, a bit of power pop, very influenced on the record that we're going to talk about today. Yeah. And it's terrifying and it's so rewarding at the same time. And I'm very excited to be releasing music.
It's amazing. So it's a fairly new project for yourself. What sort of kickstarted you into doing this, Julian?
I've been playing and releasing music since for a better part of 10 years. About 4 years ago, I injured my ear.
Pretty important to a guy in your line of work.
At the moment, I was like fully depending on my ears. Like I was a full-time sound engineer, both live and studio. I was playing in a band. I was touring with a band. And while playing a show, I was like leaning back, had a cymbal right next to my ear. Drummer played it.
That was just not from hitting it. That was just the audio of it, right?
It was the audio. Yeah.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah. So I took like a forced 2-year-long break. Good beer.
Good 0% beer.
Nice.
Thank you. Yes.
So I took a 2-year break, which was super hard.
Sure.
So it was like,
not doing what you loved.
Yeah. Like it was my entire identity was completely stripped. I was like, what the fuck do I do now?
I'll tell you what, I remember having the same thing when I stopped being in bands around like 2008 it would have been, after 2 years of literally doing like dedicating everything to it. And I remember the sense of freedom I had afterwards of just getting home from work and watching The Simpsons for an hour. I was like, fuck, this is good.
Yeah.
Oh, The Simpsons is good, man. But inevitably, the itch starts building and it needs to be scratched again.
Well, to be honest, like I never had that moment where it felt like a relief because it was not a decision. Like it was not like they didn't have the drive to do the band or they don't want to spend the time doing the band or anything. It was just like, it was like I had to take this break. So the whole time I was like, I didn't know if I was going to be able to ever do anything again. I didn't know if my ear was going to heal. It was very much a trauma. So it was like all depending on my brain deciding that I was fine.
So hang on, your brain wasn't in action. Your ears weren't in action. Thank God the rest of you was, eh?
Yeah, for sure. 100%. But like over time, I started getting, I think, through the trauma, like over the trauma that created that kept the ear not from healing. And about January this year, I started to be able to play my acoustic guitar again. And I was like, fuck. Through the whole time, I had been writing and recording just in a very quiet level for myself. So I had a bunch of tracks that I had ready to be released.
Sure.
And probably around March.
So it almost sounds like without realizing it, you were creating this project.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's great.
Yeah. So around March, I was like, okay, I'm ready to go. I have all this material. I might as well start releasing it. Fuck it.
Amazing. You just got to say yes to it, right?
Yeah.
Just got to make it happen. It's kind of like what happened with this project, in all honesty. It's sort of like thinking this would be something of value and worth doing, and then suddenly just going, well, look, I could talk about it forever, or I could just effing do it. And I didn't even talk about it until I started doing it. So now here we are. So we've been known each other for like 2 years now. You've not always been in London, right? So what's your journey been getting here, Julian?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Costa Rica.
What a country.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place to grow up in. Super fun. As you said, like I grew up surfing. Whenever there weren't any waves, I would skateboard and whenever we weren't skateboarding or surfing, we were playing in a band, or just.
Sounds like the life for me, mate.
Yeah, it was a great place. But the music scene is super small.
Right.
So.
Well, who's in the waste of their time sat in a sweaty, horrible rehearsal room when you could be literally on the beach, catching waves?
Which I guess that's why, like, all the guitar virtuosos are like Swedish and like Norwegian and stuff, you know? Like,
that's why there's so many bands from Manchester, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't get bands from seaside towns. Well, there's one exception, I guess, and we'll get into that.
We will.
We'll get into that. All right, and Julian, I think it's time. Why don't we get into it? Who are we discussing today?
Today we are discussing the album "And Out Come the Wolves" by the band called Rancid.
Right then. Rancid are an American punk band from Berkeley, California. So they do have bands in hot places. There you go.
They do.
And today we are discussing the third of the band's 10 studio albums, and Here Come the Wolves. The album was released in 1995 and charted at 45 in the US Billboard 155 in the UK album charts. Now that may not sound like much, but for a punk band and a DIY label, it was a significant triumph. The band's logo is iconic and synonymous with alternative fashion. Try walking from Camden Market on any given day and see how long it takes you to see a Rancid t-shirt. I doubt you'll make it very far past the Hawley Arms. But more than just fashion, the band went on to become a major influence on US punk and the pop punk that followed. It's quite clear the influence they had on the likes of Blink-182, Sum 41 and The Offspring. A pretty strong legacy. So Julian, I'm a couple of years older than you. Rancid sort of came through like 94, 95, seemed to be when things really happened for them. You'd have been a little pup at the time. When did you discover Rancid?
Yeah, I discovered Rancid probably in 2006, 2007.
What a year.
Yeah, and I was probably like 14, 15 at the time.
Yeah.
And it was the classic, like, best friend's older brother story.
A classic of the genre, yes.
It was.
Find me a better way to discover music. It can't be done.
It was like me and I had a group of best friends, and my brother and I had this older cousin that was.
Was your brother older or younger? Paint the picture.
We're twins.
You're twins?
So we're twins.
I didn't know this.
Yeah.
You've had a twin brother and you've not told me in the 2 years known each other. Julian.
We look nothing alike.
Amazing. What's his vibe? Is he in the similar sort of things as you are?
Yeah. Music-wise, yeah.
Amazing.
But he's a doctor. So we're complete opposites. Yeah. But he'll be a doctor, like, listening to Rancid as well.
What a doctor.
Yeah. So our older cousin was 5 years older than us, and our best friend's older brother was also 5 years older than us. So, like, we were freshmen in high school, they were seniors in high school. So there was like the fucking coolest generation, you know, like everything they did, we kind of like emulated. Like, they started skateboarding, we all bought skateboards. They started a band, we all like started learning guitar, and every now and then, like, one of us would be like, oh, like, one of those guys like showed me this band, and we would all like get together and like study the band and learn from it. And at the time, like, for like 14, 15, we were like into like Green Day and Blink and Sum 41 and stuff.
The classics.
Yeah. And I remember the day where Mark, my best friend, was like coming back from school to my place, we were working like a science project or some shit like that. And he was like, dude, my brother just showed me this band. Like, it is insane. And he typed into YouTube, the early days of YouTube, Rancid Ruby Soho. And it was Ruby Soho. I think it's like the 9th track of this album. And mind you, like, I'm from Costa Rica, right? So like we grew up kind of like listening to reggae, and like my dad would play Bob Marley on the way to the beach and stuff. And the video for Ruby Soho begins with this like close up of Tim Armstrong, the singer, walking like away from the camera with his like bondage goth plaited trousers, and he's carrying this jukebox that's playing reggae. So like from that moment, I'm like hooked. I'm like, ooh, like something I can relate to. Like,
so you can relate to that straight away, can't you?
Yeah. And then the reggae stops. They plug in the janked like guitar. Their like song starts down, down, and then the mohawks come into the shot and like all the studs. And my 15-year-old self was completely hooked from that moment. And like that moment absolutely changed my life.
There's something you can't sort of recreate, is like those things that get imprinted on a 15-year-old, 14-year-old brain.
Yeah.
you just learn everything front to back. I mean, like, we were saying the other day, weren't we? Like, the idea of like learning a new song now, it just doesn't stay in the brain at all. It's the same for me in Oasis. I can tell it's the same for you in Rancid. That stuff is just imprinted in your brain in a way that would never happen again.
No. And like the entire record, it's 19 songs.
19.
And like I'll listen to the first song ends, and I can already hear the next one.
Yeah.
And the next one.
Of course.
And the next one for all 19 songs.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it starts strong. I mean, let's get into it, man. That first track on the album, they set the blueprint, and it just keeps on going, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah.
What do you reckon? What's your big sort of standout points in the album?
Well, I think the beginning is quite awesome.
Pretty strong.
Because it's Maxwell Murder, like super fast punk rock song. That I guess it has like the unique selling point of Rancid. That's this. Well, the songwriting, how catchy it is.
It's really hook heavy, isn't it?
It's so hook heavy, but it's so punk at the same way. Like so non give a fuck, but in a really strategic way.
Sure.
And how good musicians they are.
Well, let's get into that bass solo. Is it the first song, isn't it? Or is it the second song?
Fuck.
Jesus Christ.
Matt Freeman.
No one's got any business playing that fucking hard on a bass line. It's crazy.
It's amazing. The level of aggression and
musicianship, it's just...
Yeah, it's incredible.
Because obviously most punk bands do the first one really well. It's easy to get aggressive on a guitar.
Exactly.
It's not easy to do both, is it?
No.
To get aggressive and have musicability. I don't know, musicianship, there you go. And I think it's quite impressive, actually. On the second track on the album, they managed to rip off not just one, but two Clash songs in one song.
Which one?
They rip off Police on My Back and Clash City Rockers in one tune.
Okay.
So, pretty bold, you know. Noel Gallagher made a career of ripping off Beatles songs. We only ripped off one song at a time.
But dude, Tim Armstrong, Rancid singer, is the biggest Joe Strummer fan.
Clearly.
But by the end of his career, by the end of Joe Strummer's career, guess what Tim Armstrong did?
Was he in the Mescalanos?
He produced the Joe Strummer and the Mescaleros.
Really?
He produced. Can you imagine?
That's fucking dreamland, isn't it?
Producing your idol.
That is the dream. I love full circle business.
So awesome.
Bang into it. So, obviously, I grew up in London, suburban London, worlds away from this. And I'll be honest with you, like the US Californian punk scene wasn't on my radar. It wasn't on top of the pops even back then. There was no real access to it from my world. How would you describe the sort of scene that Rancid came from to the uninitiated?
Right. So it all starts in the East Bay, east of San Francisco, with this little strip of bars called, and the strip is called Gilman Street. And it was a super DIY punk rock community from, I think it was like 85 to 95 or something like that. And it was in its hype at the end of the 80s, like 87 to 89. And that is where punk rock, or like, I guess like American punk rock as we know it today, like came from. And it was bands like Screeching Weasel, The Queers, No Effects was in that generation of like late 80s Gilman Street punk bands. And the kings of that scene were a band called Operation Ivy.
Right, yes, I did hear about this band when I was doing my research. Because I should probably make it clear as well, I'd never listened to a Rancid song in my effing life. So this has been a real learning curve for myself, a real deep dive into a genre that's never been on my radar before. But Operation Ivy came up a bit in my research. I want to explain a bit about who they are, Julian.
So, can we curse, by the way?
Fuck yeah.
Okay, cool. So Operation Ivy is the kings of the scene, and they're great songwriters, they're great players, they're really good live, and they signed to the local record label called Lookout Records, which Green Day later signed to and released Dookie with. No, not Dookie. The 9,000 whatever 9 smoothed out slappy hours.
Don't look at me for early Green Day releases.
Yeah,
I'm not your guy, Julian.
That was Green Day's first record label. Anyways, so Operation Ivy is on Lookout Records, and they released this record called Energy that is so good, and it's like super fast ska punk, and it is very much Clash influenced.
Sure.
But a lot scrappier.
Scrappy's good. I like Scrappy.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's a really fun record. And And straight away they release it, and like it starts selling like crazy in the underground, like just bootleg copies everywhere. And Jesse Michaels, the singer, is like, I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want to be famous. I don't want to be famous. Like, I just want to write music and sing it. So he decides to quit the band. And that is the end of Operation Ivy. And at this point, Tim Armstrong, the singer of Rancid, who was then just guitar for Operation Ivy, goes in this huge depression and like starts doing a lot of heroin and goes really like in a really dark stage. He's like living on the streets and stuff. And Matt Freeman, who was the bass on both Operation Ivy and Rancid, creates Rancid as a way to get Tim Armstrong off the streets with a mission and a purpose so that he can like just put his energy elsewhere other than drugs. So Rancid is born out of this like incredible band that was never to be.
So are you saying that heroin's not all bad?
It is not.
We can very much not say that. Don't do drugs. So you mentioned a bit about Green Day there. So I mean, I saw that Billy Joe Armstrong was nearly joined the band at one point, right?
Exactly. So Rancid released a record, self-titled record called Rancid, as a three-piece with Matt Freeman on bass, Tim Armstrong on guitar, and the first drummer, I can't remember his name at the moment. And it was a really good success, but they wanted a second vocalist, which is cool because like that ended up being like the blueprint for a pop punk band afterwards with like Blink and stuff, you know. But they were recruiting like local punk rock legends or like punk rock kind of like community people in the Lookout scene to join as a second vocalist, and one of them was Billy Joe Armstrong, and Tim really wanted Billy Joe to join.
Of course, funny that, isn't it?
Yeah, and they actually wrote a song at that time that is a really good Rancid song called Radio. And at this point, like, Tim was, like, I think he was, like, 8 or 10 years older than the rest of them.
Right.
So he's very much kind of like an older brother kind of like relationship with Billy Joe and Mike Dirnt and stuff. So it's pretty ballsy for Billy Joe to not join, I think.
He must have had a lot of faith in himself, though, right? I mean, he must have been a little bit aware of the talent he had and what he was capable of because he decided not to do it.
Yeah.
And what do you reckon? Obviously, Rancid are not a household name, right? We can pretty much agree to that. I can't recall. I think maybe in Reading 0506, they might have been in the lineup for that. But I've not seen them on anything in the UK since. How much do you think, like the likes of Green Day and Blink-182 and their undeniable stadium success, what do you think Rancid make of that?
I think they'll be super proud. I don't think that there'll be any jealousy, especially with Green Day. There's Green Day and AFI were both from Gilman Street, and they were both kind of like the same generation that I think like Rancid paved the way for. Rancid were like starting to see the first bit of success from that scene and signed to Epitaph Records. And I think that kind of like caught the attention of record labels to like, ooh, there might be something here. So like Green Day wouldn't be Green Day without Rancid. And without Green Day, there wouldn't have been Blink. And without Blink, there wouldn't have been Sum 41. And also, like, Rancid took a lot of shit for kind of, like, selling out and like, you know, like, signing to...
Oh, I can't believe you guys want to pay the bills, man.
Exactly.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I can't believe you want people to buy your record that's still not punk.
Yeah. But I think, like, Rancid never subscribed to that because of the beginnings of Operation Ivy not happening because of the not wanting success. So the entire reason though to create Rancid was to do good,
to be successful, to achieve stuff, reach an audience.
So I like the sense that I get is that they would probably see Billy Joe Armstrong and say like, fuck yeah, dude, you go.
But what do you reckon? Have Rancid they've been paid, they've had a good sort of career, they're not sort of struggling for money, do you reckon?
No, they're fine, I think.
Yeah,
they wouldn't be Green Day success level, but
yeah,
they're fine. And like well, Tim Armstrong in particular, he's a full-on entrepreneur. Like, he created Hellcat Records. That's a sub-label of Epitaph.
He's been paid.
Yeah.
He's all right.
Yeah. And
he's all right.
And like they do a lot of like co-writing with other bands and stuff.
Cool. They've monetized it.
Yeah,
they're all right. Yeah, that's
like,
good.
They very much monetize it while carrying the punk rock banner, and that's so cool, man. Like the amount of times where like Lars Fredriksson, the guitarist, has been on like cross punk compilations and like oi punk and shit. Like, and just like kids that are 13 will go and check out these compilations because Lars Fredriksson from Rancid is in there. So they're just like helping
The last seal of approval.
Yeah, they're just like helping the punk rock community grow by being themselves.
Well, I'm banging to that. Speaking of being yourself, I mean, what do you reckon? What kind of impact has this band and this scene had on your life and who you've grown up to become?
Man, like I think at the same time, that moment where I listened to Roots Radicals for the first time saved and ruined my life. That moment meant that I was never going to be a lawyer. I was never going to be
right.
Like a blue collar, like a white collar worker. Like I was going to be a musician no matter what. And I was going to get tattoos. I was going to get piercings. I was going to be me and like have self-expression as the pillar of my life. I knew that I could have a choice and like live life my way.
What makes Rancid and like this particular album stand out to you, do you think? 'Cause they're not short of contemporaries, are they?
No, I think it's songwriting.
Yes.
I think it's all about the songwriting. The way they kind of like write lyrics and like how you can like feel the imagery and how they convey really cool, like almost like lifestyle and how it's so catchy, how it's like so energetic and how it's played so well. But more than anything, how like how the songwriting is arranged and how it's almost Beatlesque songwriting with the punk rock.
Steady on.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
I think so. Because like, you know how like there's like the two camps of punk rock from the 70s. There's the US Ramones, friendly, like all about like the bubblegum rock,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
like, and then there's the flip side of like the Sex Pistols fucking shit up and like slowing the tempo down, being super gritty and like.
Because that album is slow, the Pistols album.
It really is.
It's a lot slower than you think for such an aggressive band. Whereas the Ramones is the opposite. They are playing at a million miles an hour.
They are. And I guess the Clash was kind of in between.
Yes, I think that's fair.
They
could do both, couldn't they?
Yeah.
Clash.
Yeah.
Well, the difference is, I guess, that Pistols released one album and the Clash released about 6 or 7, didn't they?
That's true.
A lot more time for variety.
That is true. Because if you compare just the first Clash record, Give 'Em Enough Rope.
Yeah.
It's
not worlds away from the Pistols' first album.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Rancid kind of like perfected that like blend between American 70s punk and UK 70s punk, where it's like super aggressive, but at the same time super poppy.
So it's funny because in the UK, I can only think of one act that's ever sort of given a nod to Rancid, and it is one of my favourite guys. The guy called Jamie T. I don't know if you know much about Jamie. Maybe he's on your radar.
I've seen it around.
Big deal here in the UK. Headlined Finsbury Park last year. Released like 5 albums now, and he's a big Rancid head. And like, there's so much of this album, I've gone, oh, I know that bit. Jamie T's done that bit before. He's ripped that bit off before.
No way.
But here's the thing: like, even though I'd always known that Jamie T was a fan of Rancid, I was like, no. Not having it, not interested, keeping it at arm's length. And the reason was that like what's my 2008, 2009, I had my big Scar sort of era where I was just obsessed with the specials. And in that sort of way that when you're 21, 22, no one can tell you differently, can they? It's like, fuck American Scar. I'm not interested. I'm into the real deal. I want the specials. I love them. Absolutely obsessed with the specials. Are they on your radar at all? Were they a band you cared about?
Yeah. Like I always loved their hits, I guess.
Well, this is the thing. It was just that stubbornness that comes with youth. And it's kept me away from Rancid my entire life until this moment.
You're welcome.
Julian. This is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've genuinely enjoyed the album a lot this week. I really have. I guess one of the differences between one of the many differences, I guess, between the 70s UK ska and this sort of American version of it is how very different the fashion and the identity around it is. I mean, the specials are wearing second-hand suits from charity shops. These guys are not, to put it lightly. How important do you think the sort of fashion and identity is with all of this scene?
I think it's very important, but it's more about self-expression and autonomy. It's more about like doing things your way, whatever that is.
It's that thing, isn't it? Like, fuck conformity and dress just like me. But are you saying there's a bit more variety in the scene fashion-wise then?
There is.
Yeah?
Yeah. Because I think that what you're nodding to is the 70s in the UK. Like, everybody had to either wear a mohawk or like Liberty spikes and like do the bondage trousers.
Yep. There was a dress code.
There was a dress code. With the California 90s scene, it's a bit different. It is more about like self-expression, about each person doing their own version of. Rancid is a good example because you'll have Tim Armstrong doing the 70s UK kind of like full-on look. Then you'll have Lars Fredriksson on guitar doing the almost like a skinhead oi punk.
Yeah.
Then you have Lars Fredriksson doing, and the drummer, I can remember only the now.
You're not good with drummers' names, are you?
Fuck,
That's okay.
man.
Don't worry.
I know Brett, who was the drummer of The Used, who's now drumming for Rancid. But anyways, and then them two that were like full on rockabilly look. And same with like the Green Day guys. They were not the classic punk rock.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. I never considered that for them actually.
Like Billy Joe had dreadlocks.
Did he?
Yeah. Yeah. He had like short, scrappy dreadlocks.
We've all had haircuts we're not proud of. Speaking of which, I mean, you ever been tempted to get the whole sort of classic punk mohawk? How bad was your haircuts around 06, 07 when you
I
discovered
have
this lot?
had a mohawk.
Of course you have. It's a loaded question, Julian. I knew I could trust you.
Of course I have.
Oh, yeah. Do you know what? That's giving huge 1975 energy, actually. How is that even you, Julian? I'm looking at that.
That is me, man. That is me.
Is that fuck? No way.
On the East Bay. So that's me when I played Gilman Street with my band.
Wow. I want to talk a bit about the sonics of the album and your man that produced it.
Jerry Finn.
Yeah, because there's a couple of songs. I meant to pick a note of it somewhere actually, but there's like one or two of their songs, but like, oh, that just sounds just like Blink-182. Obviously came after them, but you can hear the influence on it.
Yeah.
But obviously now I'm thinking Jerry Finn had his hands all over guitar music for the best part of 20 years, basically. So I learned the guy also produced Blink-182, The Offspring, Ash, Goo Goo Dolls, even produced Madness, the OG 70s ska bands. Weezer, produced 2 Morrissey albums. Also, what really caught my attention, I don't know if you know this, Jerry Finn also produced A Very Merry Chipmunk by Alvin and the Chipmunks.
No way.
Way, motherfucker.
What?
It was their 4th Christmas album. Where do you think it charted on the Billboard 200?
Alvin and the Chipmunks.
By the way, notice I said the Billboard 200. There's a clue for you.
199.
You're not far off. It's 147. I do wonder if the other 3 albums that came before that maybe charted a bit better, and this was the nail in the coffin. Yeah, it's not on streaming, unfortunately. So, you know, Jerry Finn's allowed 1 flop album, isn't he? What a shame. This is the bit I hadn't warned you about, Julian. I have prepared a quiz.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm really enjoying my guests' reactions to this as the podcast goes on.
All right.
This is record number 3. You've taken this like a champ, actually. Okay, you seem pretty confident with this.
Thank you.
So it starts off pretty simple. It starts getting pretty silly pretty quickly. The album cover of And Out Come the Wolves is an homage to which hardcore band?
Minor Threat.
No hesitation. Yes,
Of course, man. Yeah.
This guy knows his shit. Yeah, it's basically a straight recreation. Which I guess now I think about it, is probably, even that alone, is a nod to The Clash. Because London Calling was an homage to one of Elvis Presley's albums.
Yeah, that's right.
So maybe it's carrying that lineage on. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, good point, man.
Right, so Rancid. True or false? The notorious durian fruit created a smell so rancid, see what I did there, that it led to a mass evacuation at a university in Melbourne after students feared there was a gas leakage. True or false?
True.
This is true.
Yes.
According to a study, the durian fruit gets its smell from 44 odor-active compounds that can smell like anything from caramel to rotten egg. What a fruit. Rancid as fuck. So, no doubt about, but I haven't got into this actually, Julian, but obviously, listening to this, I couldn't believe how few of the songs I recognise, because I spent a lot of time playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater as a young man. And Rancid aren't on the soundtrack.
That's a good point. Yeah.
How are they not on the soundtrack?
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, we're going to write that wrong right now. I'm assuming you're a Tony Hawk man.
I am.
Right then. X, up, left square, left circle, up, down, up X, left square, left triangle, and up left square. What combo have I just performed? I'll repeat the question. It's a combo. X up, left square, left circle, up, down, up X, left square, left triangle, left square. You're giving this way more consideration than it deserves, Julian.
Kickflip. Back twist.
Ollie, 540 heel flip, Indy and manual and hill flip and nose slide and hill flip. What a combination.
Of course.
Now, this is going to work a lot better for those that are watching the video of this, but I have prepared a little something called mohawk or schmohawk. So obviously, we have one of the great mohawk wearers of the punk rock scene, Lars Fredriksson. Am I pronouncing that right?
That's it.
Lars Fredriksson. It's going to be winner stays on mohawk or schmohawk. So, from Lars Fredriksson versus David Beckham. Who's got the better mohawk? Is it mohawk or schmohawk?
I think that's a mohawk versus schmohawk, yeah.
Right, so who's the schmohawk?
Beckham.
Beckham's in the fucking bin. He's a schmohawk. Lars, you're going up against Fran Healy from Travis, Naughty's Bedwetters. Lars versus Fran. Mohawk or schmohawk from Fran Healy?
That looks like a devil lock.
Explain the difference.
A devil lock is what the Misfits would wear. And it's where you put all your hair in the middle. That's a devil lock.
Schmohawk?
Schmohawk.
Schmohawk, you're in the bin, Fran. We've gone for Mr. T. Now, this one seems a bit more competitive.
That's
Lars versus Mr. T.
That is a full-on mohawk.
Mohawk or schmohawk?
Mohawk.
Lars, you're out. Mr. T, you're on. Big one next. Oh, the first fictional character of the round. We have Travis Bickle, fictional character from Taxi Driver. That is a hell of a mohawk versus Mr. T. Who stays on? Mohawk or schmohawk?
Mohawk.
It's a mohawk from Bickle. Travis Bickle is on living to see another day, but he's against stiff competition. Joe Strummer of The Clash wearing, well, the mohawk's not too big just there actually, but he's been known to walk sportier ones. Is Joe Strummer winning this battle against Mr. T? Is it mohawk or schmohawk?
Oof, that's a tough one
It's
because
a toughie. These aren't supposed
it's a
to be
tough
easy.
because he doesn't have the mohawk on the back. It's only the top. And
You're a real mohawk perfectionist, Julian. I've sort of underestimated the mohawkness in you.
Well, to me, like, it needs to be the whole thing. But that being said, I feel like Joe Strummer gets a pass.
Joe Strummer gets a pass. Joe Strummer, mohawk or schmohawk?
Mohawk.
He's a mohawk in the bin, Mr. T. Up next, we have... yeah.
No way.
Hell of a photo. Worth getting on the YouTube for this one, guys. Anthony Kiedis from Funk Knobheads, Red Hot Chili Peppers versus Joe Strummer. Mohawk or schmohawk?
Mohawk, 100%.
Whoa! The votes are in. Kiedis is up. Strummer is in the bin. This might get a bit competitive now. It's Anthony Kiedis versus bass wanking bandmate Flea of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Kiedis versus Flea, mohawk or schmohawk?
Mohawk.
Mohawk, Flea,
For sure.
You've done it. You've done it. Obviously, you've got an opinion on Flea's mohawk here. You seem to be such a bloody expert, Julian, which I wasn't expecting.
The red is pretty cool.
The red's pretty dope, actually. Probably the dopest thing this man has done fashion-wise.
He should have done the red goatee.
He's missed the boat there, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a shame. That's a shame. Well, you missed all the notes you don't play, and there aren't many that Flea has not played. Flea, mohawk, Kiedis is in the bin. Now we've got a big one. This is Mario Balotelli, Italian football legend, total nutcase against Flea of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Mohawk or schmohawk?
Schmohawk.
Schmohawk, Balotelli, you're in the bin. Flea
And I think
is
it's
the winner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good game, right?
That was fun.
That was fun. So there you have it, ladies and gents. This has been an education in 70s punk? No, it's not. In 90s. Californian punk. Any final sort of thoughts or feelings or, any sort of big stand-up moments of this album you'd like to discuss, Julian?
just give it a listen front to back. Like, you probably won't get through the whole thing in one sitting, so just
It's not a
be
short album. We
patient.
should discuss this. What is it? It's about 50 minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, around 49, I think it says on Spotify.
So it's 19 tracks, 49 minutes. It's pretty good going, though. As a guy that was new to this, I enjoyed every bit of it, in honesty. I've definitely kept this band at arm's length, never given them the time of day, and I've got a lot out of this album in the last week. In fact, Julian, pass me the skateboard. It's time to do a kickflip.
Let's do it.
On that note, this has been this album. I've been William Hann. Where can people stay in touch with you and see what's going on in your world?
Follow me on Instagram and Spotify, please. On Instagram, Julian.Gonzalez. You'll see me.
Any upcoming shows or releases we should be ready for?
My song Game of Blood came out last month and is very much in the songwriting realm of Rancid, and it'll be awesome if you guys check it out.
Julian, thank you very much for your time. This has been this album.
Yeah.
Awful stomachache through that.
Fuck, dude, yeah, you were burping the whole time.
Fucking hell. Awful business.
Good sound effects.